It's your boy Luke, back again for another NFL Showdown picks video, this time for our picks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game going to the New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football. And it's going to be a special one, obviously the GOAT going back to his old team, but for even more reasons, it's an exciting matchup between two pretty good teams. I mean, a lot of people didn't expect the Patriots to play as well as they have to this point, and obviously Tampa Bay, returning Super Bowl champions, we know who they are, and I'm excited for this matchup. We have a Millie Maker going on. It's actually one of the special contests, has a ton of entries, over 200,000 on Draftkings. We've got a ton of other GPPs, single entry stuff, cash games, everything in between. So let's hop into the picks for this week. We're going to go through our stud options for each team, an injury report, of course, and we'll finish it off with our value picks and captain plays. So without further delay, let's hop right into it. So in this game, we have a 49.5 point over-under, actually one of the higher scoring games on this slate. We also have a spread of -7 for the Patriots, which is actually a little bit lower than what I expected. I had it personally right around 8.5 points, but you have it at -7 for the Patriots, so keep that in mind. In terms of an injury report on the Bucs side of things, we do have Rob Gronkowski already ruled out. Same thing with Giovanni Bernard. We had Scotty Miller placed on the IR earlier on this week, and a few injuries in the secondary as well. So you have Bunting at quarterback, same thing with Dean, both going to be out. In terms of the defensive line, we do have Pierre-Paul as questionable, but that's really it for the Bucs side of things. In terms of Patriots injuries, we have their kicker, Nick Folk, as questionable. Do expect him to suit up unless that leg seems to tighten up a little bit before game time. We have James White on IR, had that nasty injury last week. We have Van Noy, Kyle Duggar, and J.C. Jackson all questionable for the Pats as well. So on the defensive side of things, a little bit banged up. Obviously, we know James White's out, but they have plenty of running backs in the wings there. And Nick Folk going to kick. I do not expect him to miss the game, but at least keep an eye on that before game time. In terms of the Bucs stud options that I like, at number 3 we have Mike Evans at $10,400. I am projected for 17.1 points in this game, and he's going to get a ton of extra red zone looks with Gronk being out. Gronk, obviously, to this point, has 4 touchdowns, absolutely killed it in weeks 1 and week 2. But now that he's out of the equation, Mike Evans is the clear number 1 option when they get down in the red zone. Has the size to go out for some of those fade routes, also can go over the middle and take a hit, so definitely like him in this instance. Just wish he was a little bit cheaper. If he was around $9,000, would be one of my favorite plays on the entire slate, but at 10.4, definitely paying a little bit more than I'd want to. At number 2, we have Antonio Brown at $7,000. He's my favorite option on this Tampa Bay team in terms of a wide receiver threat. At 16.3 points, I think he has a great price tag at $7,000. Also a very high floor. Somebody who's going to go out, get you a ton of PPR production. Also somebody who has a very good rapport with Tom Brady. And speaking of the GOAT, Tom Brady, obviously going to be coming in at number 1. He's $12,800, which is a tad bit ridiculous if you ask me, but projected for 22.3 points, and you're going to need him in your lineup. You know, I have him projected right now for 51.5 passing attempts, over 300 yards passing, and nearly 3 touchdowns through the air. So definitely like him in terms of his projected median. Also like his ceiling, given that he has so much extra motivation in this bout against the Patriots. In terms of the Patriots side of things, I don't love it as much. Again, I do expect the Patriots to lose by probably 10, 11 points in this game. So Mac Jones does come in at number 3. If they're playing from behind, he at the very least is going to have plenty of passing attempts. I have him at $9,400 on DraftKings, projected for 17.8 points, and he threw 51 times in week 2, and they were playing from behind in that instance. I'm expecting a very similar game throw. He had nearly 300 yards, and if he ends up putting 2 touchdowns up on the board instead of 1, could end up being a good play on the slate. At number 2, we have Damian Harris at $7,400. I am projected right now for just over 15 points, and he had 37 carries between weeks 1 and 2. Obviously, tailed off there in week 3, only had 6 carries for 14 yards. So that's why we see the price go down as far as it has. So I really like that price tag for him. Somebody who, when he has it rolling, they're going to just run him early and often, probably closer to 20 carries in. At $7,400, you would absolutely have to have him at that price tag. And at number 1, we have Jacoby Myers, who had a whopping 14 targets in week 3. So somebody who Mac Jones looked to the entire game. I like the price tag at $8,400. Is clearly cheaper than both of those options up top on Tampa Bay. A little bit more expensive than Antonio Brown. I have him projected for slightly more points, so 16.9 points. Obviously, I like going to him because he is that number 1 option on the New England side of things, isn't dealing with as much competition, but perhaps has a little bit more volatility in his game. And now getting into the value plays, at number 3, we have Ronald Jones II, who at $2,000 is an excellent value on this slate. Currently have him projected for 8.8 points, and he's going to get a ton of usage if the Patriots end up getting blown out. So really like him in those instances. Going to give you plenty of work and usage out of the backfield as a wide receiver. Somebody who has touchdown upside. They love using him down on the goal line. So love him for multiple reasons in this game, and think he has multiple ways of getting to the optimal lineup. At number 2, we have Cameron Brate at $4,200, who has a much higher projection at 10.4 points and was the clear number 1 asset in the absence of Gronk last week. He ran 45% of snaps, and that was obviously after Gronk went out and took out quite a few of them, to just 19% for O.J. Howard. So got almost twice as many snaps as Howard in his absence. And while I don't expect it quite to be a 2-to-1 kind of share this week, I don't expect it to be like 66-33, probably closer to 60-40. Cameron Brate going to get the better half of this, but definitely costs a lot more, right? Is 4 times more expensive. So that's why at number 1, you see O.J. Howard as my number 1 value play. Just $1,000 on the slate. The fact that he's priced this low is kind of ridiculous. We knew that Gronk wasn't going to be playing earlier on the week, so only projected for 6.9 points, but if he goes out there, gets a touchdown, he's going to blow that out of the water. The Bucs used 2 tight end sets, an absolute ton, and while he didn't get the primary share of targets there last week, he was still used. Obviously, got half as many targets, half as many snaps as Cameron Brate. So going forward, expect that to come a little bit closer. Expect O.J. Howard to be a little bit more athletic, has the deep play threat that somebody like Cameron Brate doesn't have. I mean, we saw O.J. Howard score multiple 70-yard touchdowns just a few years ago before Rob Gronkowski got into things. So keep that in mind. And over to our captains. At number 3, we have Tom Brady at $19,200. He's projected for a crazy 33.5 points. So even with a nearly $20,000 price tag, it's a huge cost, but it's worth it. And at number 2, we have Mike Evans at $15,600. Not as crazy a projection, obviously at 25.6 points, but much more palatable in terms of that price tag. He has a ceiling game completely in the cards here with Gronk being out. Somebody who's going to get a lot more red zone looks, and somebody like Mike Evans can go out, put up 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and break a slate. It happens about once or twice a year. And in these showdown slates where it can happen and absolutely break it off its hinges. I mean, on a full slate, when someone goes out and scores 40, 50 points, it kind of breaks the slate. You kind of have to have them to cash. You can at least get, low-level cashes about them. But here on Showdown, if you don't have that kind of player, you're completely out of everything. So keep that in mind. I really do like Mike Evans in this instance, especially at captain. But at number 1 for our captain, we have Antonio Brown. So $10,500, projected for 24.5 points. And you can spread your salary around to all other positions if you do this. That's really the beauty of going to AB at captain. The price tag's perfect. He's kind of in that sweet spot. Typically, I look for guys in that $7,000 to $8,000 range for my captain. This gives you enough flexibility with the rest of your positions to do what you need to. And I definitely think he has a ceiling game in him. Has a very good rapport with Tom Brady, like I mentioned before. He's going to get plenty of PPR production. And against a team that doesn't necessarily have the best secondary, I mean, Gilmore's out for quite some time. A lot of their backups are young. I expect him to get exposed a little bit in this instance. That's all for my showdown picks for Sunday Night Football, guys. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who your favorite play on the entire slate is. Would love to hear why. Would love to get some debate down there. Obviously, for me, it's Tom Brady in terms of an actual just highest point projection basis. But if we're looking at point per dollar, for me, it's definitely going to be Antonio Brown. I don't think you can question that. At $7,000, it's about $3,000 too cheap for my liking. Still has a great projection, but go ahead and let me know down below. As always, guys, I really appreciate your viewership. If you guys could like and subscribe, absolutely would appreciate that a ton. As always, I'm going to have more football content coming out tomorrow. We're going to have my live stream at 11:30 a.m. We're going to be going over my player pool, some ownership, some game theory for the main slate, that is. So make sure to stop by if you have any questions. You can also drop just any season-long fantasy stuff you have as well. But until then, guys, good luck, and I'll see you guys on.